I've wanted a miter saw station for years. Ever since I built my first woodworking project, I used my miter saw on the floor. Then I was using it on my workbench, and they're just not ideal. So I built this very basic miter saw station workbench. This setup that we got our 74-inch pieces, and then we're going to put our 29-inch pieces in the middle. Put our 74-inch piece on this side. And once I have my workbench, once I have my workbench back, should I say, I won't have to build things on the floor. You could very easily use pocket holes to screw this together. If I'm going to use an 1/8-inch drill bit with a countersink head on the end, I'm going to put one screw in each side, and I'll put the second screw in as well. And this is going to be more than strong enough. I'm also going to be using 3-inch deckmate screws that I've got left over. I like this because it's got the countersink bit on the end. It means this screw is going to sit nice and flush. And this is shop furniture after all, so you don't need to use pocket holes to hide the screws. I like using pocket holes when you need to hide the screws you're making a piece of furniture where they're going to be hidden away. But for this here, it's in the workshop. I think it's more than okay. So each corner is going to have 2 of these legs that we cut to 34.5 inches long, and we're going to do a staggered kind of setup here, and that's because the top plate is actually going to sit on this leg here. So I've got a cut off piece from before, and we're just going to line that up with the end here. Like that. Hold this in place. I am going to be pre-drilling and countersinking ever so slightly, just like before, and then use the same 3-inch screws and just make sure not to put them in too far, or else they might end up poking out the other side. And before we put any more screws in, just need to make sure they are lined up. I'll put 4 screws in this side, and I'll put 2 on the other side. These legs are going to sit perfectly right like that. So we'll screw them in from both sides, make sure they are secure. And we're just going to make sure, wow, that is square. Whew. See if I can catch on this side. It's important to not be ashamed to build things. I mean, you have to use the tools and the products that you have lying around, so you might not have a pocket hole jig, you might not want to buy one, you just might not like them. So this is another alternative. On camera, maybe some eagle-eyed viewers may have spotted this a little bit earlier, but I am missing 2 29-inch pieces. Can you guess where they are? On this leg here. I just picked up the 2 wrong pieces and put them together, so I have to remove these and put the other leg together. So I only had 3 legs that were ready. Let me just correct that and move on to the next step. And this is where you really add some structure to this assembly, because if you just left it like this, it's not going to be very strong. And we're going to put our 2 29-inch pieces across here, and this is going to pull these legs in. If they're at an angle, they're not square, it's going to pull them into 29. Got one that's going to go on this side as well. And this is where you could do this 2 ways. You can make another box like you did above and put it on the inside, so make it 3 inches narrower. Or you can do what I'm doing here, where I'm only using 3 pieces. There's going to be a back piece, the 2 side pieces like this. And the reason I'm doing it this way is I'm not decided what's going to go in here, if anything's going to go in here. So I'm going to leave it so it can be adjusted. So make sure everything's as square as possible. And then I'm going to drive a number of screws in to hold everything in place. Time to add some leveling feet. I've got these little feet here. You can adjust them from 0.3 inch basically all the way up to 2 inches or so, rated to 330 pounds, and you can get them on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in getting them. I'm going to put one on each corner so that I can level this once it's on the floor, because my concrete floor isn't level. If you're not going to be adding any more framing to the bottom, then you can flip this over and get it the correct way. Hopefully it's not too heavy. This one is complete for now. We do need to put a tabletop on it, but we'll get to that once we've got the other side built. It's going to be the exact same setup as this one, just shorter. Now, this is the point where you need to figure out how much space you need between the workbenches for your miter saw. Now, my miter saw goes to 50 degrees on the left-hand side, and it goes all the way up to 60 degrees on the right-hand side. And why this is really important, if I tuck these wings in, and then rotate this to 50 degrees, you'll notice that my handle sticks out past the frame of the miter saw, and that's going to be a real problem because my workbench is going to be 31 inches deep. So 31 inches deep off of the wall is right here. So that means if my workbench comes along and I fit it right between the base of the miter saw, well, this is not going to be able to get to 50 degrees. I'm going to get stuck at about 30 degrees. So that's not going to allow me to use my miter saw to its full capability. So I need to pull these wings out. I'm going to use this as a reference point. Pull them out to the sides and then rotate these like that. And then I can work out roughly how far I need to have my miter saw gap between the workbenches. And we'll rotate it to the right hand side. We're at 60. That out a little bit. That's going to allow the workbench to be like this, and I'll be able to get my hand in here and then turn it to the other side and not interfere with the workbench and allow me to get a 60-degree miter on this right hand side. Dimensions I'm going to get here are 16 inches on the left hand side, and on the right hand side 17 and a half. When we're putting this workbench together, we know that we need a gap of 33 and a half inches between these workbench tops. And because this miter saw is going to be recessed into the workbench and I want this to sit flush with the top of the workbench, it means I need to get this measurement here, and it is 3 5/8. So that means I need to have the shelf below this sit 3 5/8 inch lower than the top of the workbench. We just finished leveling up this workbench. I haven't put the locking nuts into position yet because I think we'll have to make some more adjustments, but now I just need to make this smaller workbench line up with this bigger workbench here. I have drilled 4 pocket holes in this front support member, just the easiest way to secure this. And we're going to, we've already got the back one installed, 2 30-seconds, plywood on top of it. Got a nice platform here to get our miter saw on. If your miter saw is narrower than mine, you probably don't need to add all this extra framework in here. You might just get away with the front and back piece. But if you want to make it more secure, I'd recommend adding side pieces at least. And then maybe this piece across the middle here, just as extra support. As every DIY project goes, nothing actually does go to plan. So I have my worktop ready to go, get installed. But I have no method of installing because I forgot to put pocket holes on my piece of wood here. So I'm going to go drill some pocket holes. I got the perfect setup. If you are going to be building a workbench like this, just drill the pocket holes before you get this installed on level. It's going to make your job a lot easier. If you're like me and you mess up where you can't actually use the pocket hole jig as it's set up, you can remove this block here. Before you remove the block, make sure you got your settings dialed in so you can put it back into that same position. But also take a measurement from the bottom of here to the bottom of the block. And we got, what's that saying? 1 inch and 1/8. And we're going to take this out. With the mark at 1 inch and 1/8, you can put your block in place, hold it there, and then you can just clamp it. And you just drill like you would freeze it. Just driving the last screw in, and yeah, the miter saw is on the wrong piece of the workbench, but I'm actually using it as a weight to hold the plywood down because when you're using pocket holes, it's really good to clamp things in place. To make it a little bit faster, just use something heavy, and the miter saw worked out really well. About there, and then I want to make sure that it can go all the way back, which it can, right there. Use this, kind of square this off. 4 inches. And I just want to make sure that I'm going to be able to cut a full 8-foot board. Where this is 96, so that's perfect. I'm going to drill through with a 1/4 inch drill bit, go through the plywood, then I can put my bolts in. Leave a washer on the top, and I've got a washer for the bottom. Like that. With all the bolts all the way through, we can just use 7/16 wrench on the bottom and then socket on the top to tighten this down. Miter saw is secured to the workbench. Some eagle-eyed viewers may have spotted earlier on in the video that there is no outlet behind this saw here. There is one on my basement side of my garage, but just not here. So I'm going to run an extension cord for now until I get a more permanent solution behind here. Never know, this may have to move before then, but more on that sometime in the future. So we'll run with the miter saw just kind of as it is right now, and then when I start adding dust collection and other things to this in future videos, we'll solve the solution of where the power is going to come from. Now we need to put a trim piece on the sides. I want to make this look a little bit nicer than it does right now. My brand nailer with 2-inch nails in it. This is a very basic miter saw station workbench, but it serves a great purpose of getting wood being able to process really quickly and easily without having to balance it. You can make a number of upgrades to this. You could add a T-track, so you can add stop blocks, so you can make repetitive cuts. You can add a little kind of trim piece along the back, kind of finish it off. Add some dust collection. That's something I'll probably do at a later video. Then down below, you can add a bunch of storage. You can do drawers, you can do cabinets, you can do shelves, you can do anything under here and really add extra storage to your workspace. So that's how you build this basic miter saw station workbench. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see some more of my builds, check out this video over here.